It's thinking about the differences from who I am as a human being at home and who I need to be in school and who I need to be in educational systems. And so many times systems try to change our children. And our children resist. That's called an achievement gap. People think we're not learning. People think that we're underachievers or actually resisting. The children teach us. So that's where I say, for myself, I don't trust myself. My teacher is my son. My teachers are my children. Because they don't see. That's one thing missing in this room. That's one thing missing in the room when a constitution is being drafted. Those are the people that we're not talking about, but that's their world we're building. And so, in all of these discussions, I would implore you folks, after today, go home, because they're going to give you the truth. The truth is, my son said, when anae came up, my son said, "What? Why did I do that?" Part of my mama at home, we have a little Aloha Āina, Moku. So he's one of the he doesn't understand that relationship. So how do our children understand the relationship? We tell them. So as generation to generation moves on, and all the meetings that we have, the spiritual message I give for you folks is consider the children, not just that we have a responsibility to do something now for them on their behalf. Think of what they know, their perspective of where they come from. Go home and ask them. Because they don't see the world how we see it. What we're going to talk about today, they don't see it that way. They see Hawaii for Hawaii. They see spirit for spirit. They don't see it for political rhetoric. They don't see it for paper trails and laws. And that took me, Mom.
How's that, people? At this time, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, from this Moku as well. Been following Uncle when I was a kid, still following him. He's over here, but everyone, please, play him along. Uncle Kalehua.
I was thrown off by the last speaker, the evil that he was talking about. And it flipped my whole presentation. I too am from this area, from Blue. Oh, I get it. And I too learned from the spirits of the mountains and valleys. And part of that spirit is to be honest, to be fearless in your statements. And over the last, 3 months, I heard and I received a lot of accusations, a lot of negative thoughts, a lot of pretty loud stuff. And so I was thinking, how do I respond to such people? And I was thinking, this is the appropriate response. I need just 2 words for you folks. The first word is a 4-letter word and it starts with an F. And the second word, well, I would just say it, free will. Free will. That's my response to you. And for everyone else, I say, anae make aloha, which in essence means the same thing. To be able to receive the thoughts of each person, receive their thoughts and the integrity of each person and their beliefs. Now, as I address you, I'm told I only get 15 minutes, so I will cut it short. But part of the concern has been what happened at Aloha Āina. And there were a number of us who participated. Let me first say that I've always, not always, over a period of time, over the last maybe 40 years, for some people it seems like always, because you're not that old. It was this belief that the quest is not to walk the straight path, but to learn to walk the crooked path straight. When I was in the U.S. military, I was court-martialed because I refused to salute the American flag anymore after reading the O'Connor's story, which is not our story. Okay? And I started plotting and planning to kill every American I could come across, to blow up the institutions that was present in Hawaii, and yet recognizing that I don't get caught. But if I sneak inside the system, so that they cannot remove me, if I can get legitimacy inside the system, then I can explode from the inside with bombs of truth, with bombs of history, with honesty. So I went back to law school, and I came out as a lawyer, and have been practicing. I refused to work for any government, and I refused to work for any major corporation. So I came out to Anae and received the support of this community to be able to practice law. But the idea was that what we need to do is learn the ways of the others and go into the system and explode the system from the inside. The quest is not to walk the straight path, but to learn to walk the crooked path straight. To walk with integrity, to walk with honesty. People criticize me for being trustee with the Office of Foreign Affairs back in the early days. People criticize me for being associated with the Aloha Āina or EV, elected out of Lualua to talk about how we should raise our independent Hawaiian nation. People criticize me for participating in this Na'i Aupuni to try to protect what is ours and secure our independence. But more important than that, to secure our unity among our people. And I'm not the only one here. There are others who have also participated with that purpose in mind. And so I suggest that we all be more patient with one another and be respectful of the positions of others. Now let me talk about Na'i Aupuni, because the suspicion still grows. Well, you folks adopted a constitution. Who the hell are you folks to adopt a constitution for the Hawaiian nation? You have no legitimacy. And that was what we pled on the floor of that So who the hell are we? We never even got to a vote. But no, they say no, we're going to adopt the Constitution. Then other people have heard say, and as a result, you folks are moving closer and closer towards federal recognition. My response is, have you taken a look at the document? Or are you only talking based on what you heard from other people? I have brought 75 copies, not only of the document, but of my review of the document, as well as other documents. It's on the table over there, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to bring any more because they're kind of thick. So as we go through it, you can help yourself to the documents there. But let me talk about this Constitution that this AHA has come up with. But more important, how does it meet the federal requirement for the Department of Interior to be recognized as a government? First of all, they start out with a preamble. Okay? As I said, the document, if you want any, are on that page. They start out with a preamble. The preamble is a beautiful preamble. Why is it beautiful? because the preamble says that we, as Native Hawaiians, recognize our right to self-determination, including independence. With that statement, it is absolutely clear that we are not giving up our independence, and it is absolutely clear that it violates the Department of Interior's requirement that you forego independence. So right at the very beginning, it says we are for independence. I questioned the chairperson of that caucus. I said, when you use the term self-determination, are you incorporating the meaning that it has in international law? And I identified the specific international legal instrument. And his response was, yes, that was our intention. Very clear. So people who are suspicious that we, as an AHA, gave into federal recognition is absolutely wrong. Not after you read that document and the rest of the critique. There's other things that are missing in that document, which is required under the Department of Interior's regulation. First of all, you need a name for this nation that you are creating. They forgot to put a name. No name. Okay? They say that in this organization that you create, you need to exclude all those who are not U.S. citizens. Read the document. You will find that no exclusion of U.S. citizens are in there. The big hookah in that document is that it has sliced our Hawaiian nation to only the Native Hawaiians. What happened? We as a nation was never racist. What Tony Keaole said in his, what was it called? Declaration of Rights of Man, the Hawaiian Magna Carta. Whereas God hath created all men of all nations equal, kings and commoners equal, people of all races equal. And then we end up with this foolishness of seeing ourselves only according to blood. Where did blood come from? It's an impartation of the colonization that we have gone through. Major mistake. But you have to understand that today's society operates in what Brother was saying, a schizophrenic mind. On one hand, we are called to honor, to what is appropriate. And part of that is a call from our history, from our culture. And yet we live under a reality that is controlled by the colonizer. By the United States of America, who passed certain laws and require that we abide by those laws if we are to survive. What Leo Kalani said was, enough for us is a stone, the mystical food of Hawaii. What was she talking about? Well, you were going to have to survive by picking the opihi and the nigo and living off the baku. Then let it be. This is the mystical food of Hawaii. Other people say, no, she was very religious. She was talking about the foundation, Jesus Christ. I don't know. But sometimes it gets kind of hard to eat only from the stone. So we gotta live in the realities. What is one of the reality? One of the reality is what they say, or what they call Hawaiian homes. That's a reality for many of our people. Whether it's in Waianae or in Papakole or wherever it is, there's a reality. And who controls that reality? The Yankee government, the colonizer. Are we to deny that that is what we have to face on a daily basis? What has happened to our people is that we have allowed division, one side having to live as an American, the other side still being pulled with our heart to Hawaii. And then what happens is that sickness invades our community so that we split our community between those who support federal recognition because there are certain realities that we have to meet, while others are saying, no, we want absolute independence. And we have that thing going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Not only our communities, our family, our churches, our individuals are split between one and the other, denying one or denying the other. We are forced into this dichotomy of war, either this or that. And we, Lolo, accept it. Why? Why not this and that? Why not respect the integrity of other people, but always remember that in order to raise a nation, which is really what the underlying purpose is, we cannot be a divided people. We keep taking sides. I'm right, you wrong. I'm right, you wrong. And what the hell are we doing? What is our cause? To show that we can win an argument? Or is our cause to raise a nation?
The right way.
The right way in our minds, and also be respectful of everyone else's right to believe. Free will. Respectfully. Respectfully. What you will find in the document is this need, this call for unity. More important, I was there in the assembly saying, hey, forget one document, forget a constitution. We don't need to come up with paper. What we need to do is show a new pathway by which we can unite our people. No more, I on this side, you on that side, we split one another. And I've had many arguments. Some people say, no can, no can. No can go with federal recognition and yet go for independence. It's impossible. It is impossible if you let the Americans place themselves above everything else. How they put colonial laws, how they put their domestic requirements above international law, above human rights and fundamental freedoms. And you have found not only the Americans who do that as part of their handprint of colonization. The French have been doing it, the British have been doing it, many other people have been doing it. And yet we get suckered in to believe that if they say so, then hey, they got me right. That we cannot really be independent if we get federal recognition. Who said so? Because in federal regulation that was what it called for? Well, when you go up into the international community, which eventually we have to face and we have to go before international arenas, they're not going to regard the American domestic law, the colonial law, to override what our essential human rights are. And that's what historically the international order has always said. There was one guy who said very clearly, his name is Christian Wilamantri. I have attended a conference, an international law conference in Fiji. And he was head of the Supreme Court of, what was that, Sri Lanka, I think, at that time. He's now, well, last I heard, he was one of the justices of the International Court of Justice. Or was it the World Court? He said, the father and the mother of all human rights is the right of self-determination. It's so fundamental, that right, that all people are recognized as having that right. And if you know even the basics of international law, you should know that that is a fundamental right that cannot be taken away. It can be given away. You can subjugate yourself to someone else's governance, but you can always take that right back. Some people have said, oh, but you exercised that right in 1959. You folks, you Hawaiians, voted for statehood. There it was. You were willing to submit yourself to the domestic laws of the United States. And having exercised your right of self-determination, you cannot bite the apple again. You cannot eat the apple. You already had your one bite to the apple. My response is, human rights and fundamental freedom is not an apple. It's a right that can be practiced over and over and over and over and over again. What happened when they went up into Canada and they had the French, the Quebec area, decide whether or not they wanted to vote for independence, separate from Canada under the principle of self-determination? They lost. And what did they say? That's okay, we'll go back 5 years from now and we'll ask the question again. But in Hawaii, what happened was even more fundamental than that. What they did was Americans committed a double fraud. They controlled what the question was. The question should have been, what do you choose among the three options? Independence, free association, or integration into the United States? The question that was actually put was, shall Hawaii be immediately admitted into the Union as a state? Kind of a different question, huh? So if you vote yes, we become integrated into the United States. If you vote no, we remain a territory still integrated into the United States. Hey, what happened to our question of independence? They stole that from us without even asking, without even giving it to us. A fraud was committed against our people. But it was a double fraud. You know, in the term self-determination. The other question is, who is this self? Is it all these military who come into Hawaii and if they stay just 1 year, they can move? Is it all the other people that we triangulated into Hawaii and if they stay in Hawaii 1 year, they can vote? And all of us who have been Americanized through the American schools and told not to study our history and know we're no more heroes and don't learn the language? And he generated us into American citizens without telling us that we had other rights. They put all of us together and they said, this is the self to participate in determination. It wasn't a Hawaiian vote, it was an Americanized vote. The double fraud that had been committed. We continue to have the right of self-determination. Okay, I noticed that. I want to thank you folks very much. And let me say one last thing. What we need to do is unify. Only as united people are we going to win anything. And we have talked about creating this, what I have called a Hawaiian National Transitional Authority. We're not trying to be a government, but somehow we would have to get together and start transitioning all of our operations, whether it's educational or social, economic, all of those systems need to begin to transition so that we can actually operate as our independent nation. We need to be able to slide into the judiciary, slide into economic systems, slide into politics and all of that so that we can begin the transition. We need to train our folks who are making the appeal in the international arena. And we need to train young people and have them go with the right experience, such as Brother Leon Steele, who has been doing it for years and years and years and years. I was talking to Leon. I said, Brother Leon, what if you die tomorrow? Where's all your notes? Who did you visit the last 2 years? What is the telephone number? What did you folks talk about? And he says, oh, we better start putting it together, yeah? That's right. The nation cannot depend on one heartbeat. The nation has to unify. We have to get together and start a movement. This transitional authority, when he says, yeah, but that's a long word. What about something else? Maybe the weaver. Weaving us into that system and taking over that system. Or something more Hawaiian. Kahaku. But the idea is, let's get to work on something positive to move ourselves rather than another 10 years from now, we back into these assemblies and we argue about independence or integration. Federal recognition, all this. No, cannot anymore. So, I have a sign-up sheet, if you're interested. Sign up, say I support, and we'll try to communicate with you. And finally, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to join you folks. And I must say, I did a little bit early. I have a radio show, and it goes 4 to 6. And sometimes I try to concentrate, but I get kind of dizzy because, and I'm a rest. So I got to rest before I do that. Any questions you have, please come up to me or call me on the radio. It's a talk show. Okay, 4-6 on the radio station is 1080 AM, KWAI, 1080 AM. Out here it's hard to pick up the signals, so go into your computer. Okay, www.kwai1080am.com. And then voila, the voice appears on the computer. Sometimes transmission is kind of weak over here. And talk story. Because when you're on the telephone or when you're on the radio, you may be only talking to me, but you're also talking to 1,000, maybe 10,000 others who are concerned, and we need to get into this kind of kuka about Hawaii's future. Thank you very much.
Alright, how's everybody doing? Is it gonna stretch up a little bit? Okay, this next speaker I'm going to introduce, he's a Kanaka educator, he's a farmer, and he's a proactive activist. You guys told me about to get on a arrest sheet right now. But I've been fighting for a while, and glad to have him here. I'm inviting you all to Andre Perez.
Aloha Āina kākou. My name is Andre Perez. I'm from Kalehua, Hawaii. I'm here on Oahu. My family comes from Kauai and from Hamakua. My mother was born in Honolulu. I was raised on Kauai. Currently, I live in Pearl City. We have a small farm, Āina Kalehua, that we use as a land base for education, Aloha Āina, and political organizing. What I want to talk about today and what I've been sharing at different venues is this basic PowerPoint that kind of traces the moral level of how we came to be where we are today with this political process. And we kind of start off contemporarily from the apology bill. And so I'll just kind of go through this process and help explain a little bit about the various decision-making and political agendas that have happened over the past 20 years or so. And to kind of give us some insight into why there's so much PDK today. Why is the community rejecting Kalehua? Why is there a large resistance to Na'i Aupuni? Yeah? And we have to ask ourselves, if it was such a good thing, how come there's so much people against it? How come there's these community meetings on every island? How come nobody wanted to sign up for Kalehua? We know that in 1897, when our kupuna had the Krug petitions, Hawaiians came out of the valleys to sign up. Now, almost the majority of the 40,000 population signed the Krug petition. There was no division, there was no controversy, there was no infighting, because it was a good thing and they knew it was a good thing for our people. So I'm hoping that this PowerPoint will at least give us some insight. It doesn't answer all the questions, but it begins to unravel some of the detail on why there's so much controversy around this process, not the output. Okay, so we can start the first slide. So most of us know the apology bill, 103-150, signed by President Clinton in 1993, acknowledging the overthrow. Well, if we pay attention a little bit to the language, we start to kind of see, even in the apology, they were trying to frame the outcome. They were trying to frame the parameters of our quote-unquote self-determination. And I'll point out real quick that self-determination is a term that has been defined and redefined throughout history. You want to read the Bible of self-determination, one of the most comprehensive studies. There was this Italian scholar who worked at the UN, and his specialty was self-determination. His name was Antonio Cassisis. He wrote this authoritative book on self-determination, tracing the concept all the way back to the 1400s. Yeah? We tend to associate self-determination with Lenin. Yeah? And the Russian Revolution and the formation of the Soviet Union and the Russian states. But the concept goes further, way further back than that. And self-determination is rooted in independence. We have to understand that it depends on who you're talking to, what context, and how you're using the term that has different political connotations and implications. One important thing to know is that President Woodrow Wilson, the U.S. President, redefined self-determination to fit an American agenda of dealing with Native American Indians. So self-determination, we could say, in the U.S. framework context, really means something associated with domestic warfare, yeah? Nation within a nation. So I just want to point that out, that I'm using the term self-determination in a general sense, that we have the right to determine for ourselves our political future, our political existence, and what that means to us. Okay, next slide. So, some key points of the apology bill that we should pay attention to, of course. One of the important things was it acknowledges the overthrow of the kingdom. It affirms that Hawaiian people never directly relinquished their claims to their inherent sovereignty as a people or over their national lands. So right there, one of the things you want to pay attention to, and this is important, is this term inherent sovereignty. Yeah? What does that mean? To me, sovereignty is sovereignty. Either you're sovereign, you have sovereignty, or you don't have. So in terms of research this term inherent, we find that the term, and you can do this yourself, Google right now if you want, inherent sovereignty. The first thing that's going to pop up at the top of the list is Native American tribal sovereignty. So what we can see now is that in the apology bill, the United States is already framing the parameters of what kind of sovereignty we can have. Inherent sovereignty is nothing more than tribal sovereignty. It's not real sovereignty. So really, if you could imagine, the boundaries are being established already here. And I'll tell you, I verified this with one of the ladies who was the key authors, who was one of the key persons to get the apology bill passed. Most of us know her, Esther Āina. She's in D.C. now. She was the one that really pushed the apology bill, kind of made it happen. So, and Esther is from the one that I post. So I asked her, Esther, inherent sovereignty. It's not real sovereignty, it's not independence. And she immediately said, no, it's not. It's within the U.S. framework. So, I'll set on that. So we need to know that, though, when we see that term. And then, of course, the apology bill puts out this call for reconciliation between the United States and Native Hawaiian people. So what does that mean, reconciliation? Thus far, since the apology bill, the reconciliation terms has always been on the U.S.'s terms. They've defined what that reconciliation means. We look at the Aloha bill and all these limitations, the things that we couldn't do, couldn't have gambling, we couldn't interfere with military operations. The Aloha bill, you guys remember, told us all things we couldn't do. It never told us what we could do, what we could have. It didn't tell us it was giving us land. It didn't tell us it was giving us water. It didn't even give us money. So next slide. So this reconciliation, really, we need to question on what that really means. So out of the apology bill, this call for reconciliation creates this joint task force, and they come to Hawaii in the late 90s. They introduce this idea of the Aloha bill. So of course, Senator Aloha is a sponsor of this bill. And it basically, the Aloha bill in general terms seeks federal recognition from Congress. And one of the important things about the Aloha bill was, as I said, it tells us all the limitations. When they were pushing the Aloha bill, they had the part of this type of legislation requires due diligence. Just like when the DOI came to Hawaii a couple years ago, introducing their form of federal recognition, they were trying to do the due diligence that the Aloha bill never did. That's why they have all these community hearings on every item. That's part of the process, their process, ours. But they do all these community hearings for due diligence so that if it was to pass, they can withstand legal challenges. What we know for a fact with the Aloha bill was there was no due diligence done. So they had one hearing on Oahu in August of 2000. Some of you may have been there. And that one hearing, the opposition was overwhelmingly against federal recognition. Because people could read the language and say, this is not normal for us. The first paragraph of the Aloha bill, which never changed, said, Congress finds that Native Hawaiians are Native Americans indigenous to America, subject to the authority of the U.S. Congress. And if we could never get past the first paragraph, we never got right into this thing. So what happens is, in August of 2000, huge opposition. The hearing went on for 3 days, and you can actually see the video of the Aloha bill hearings on YouTube. And if I remember correctly, there are only 2 people that are in support of federal recognition in the video. Ilya Grega and Don Hope. I don't know what Don Hope was thinking. Too much time involved. And then the majority of the lobby says, it gets kind of rowdy, saying, we don't like this. So what happens after that one only hearing in August of 2000, they cancel all the other hearings. No more hearings. None of the other items get to have any input or have a say. Despite that, the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, the State of Hawaii, Governor Legal, organizations like CMHA, they push forward with the Aloha bill, and we have a whole decade of contentious battle with the Aloha bill. And the Office of Hawaiian Affairs drops tens of millions of dollars in pushing this Aloha bill agenda. So we see already that when all the way up to 2000, they're pushing an agenda with no lawful consultation, no input, no real aspect of self-determination, of us having any kind of say in our future. Next slide. So the Aloha bill goes on for 10 years, lots of money wasted, lots of political contention, lots of protests. I was involved in that. We organized a group called Moku, and we were very active. And I feel like I kind of got sucked into like just 10 years of Pikia, And then comes Act 195. And when Act 195 happens, it comes out of legislation, so some politicians draft this bill, Act 195, and it gets passed. Anybody here gave input or testified on Act 195 before it got passed? Raise your hand. So everybody was looking around and we see that we had no involvement in Act 195. It was the politicians up at the state capitol who passed this bill, and they, in the language of Act 195, without our consultation, without our input, without our free, informed, prior consent, they create this thing called a role. So we got to ask ourselves, what is a role? So we can Google the same thing, look up the Dawes Act and these native roles. There's only one purpose for a role. A role is basically a certified list of names. So it's a list that has been verified and certified as a list of native people. In the U.S. political framework, there's only one reason for a role. One reason only, and that's for tribal recognition, or something like tribal recognition. The DOI, Department of Interior, requires a role for federal recognition. There's no way it can operate without a role. Yeah? So we have to start asking ourselves, so we begin asking ourselves, yeah, who decided to put a role, create this role? Yeah? Why do we not place ourselves in this political box? And we look at the history of roles, native roles coming out of the Dawes Act, and they really created those who were native who subscribed to the framework and those who weren't. And those who weren't were out forever. They're not part of the tribe. There's even stories, there's more level. During the time when they were doing these roles, there was Native American hunters who were out in the, in the hills and the mountains hunting for weeks at a time, and they missed the cycle. So they came back to their village. The roll was closed. They were out. So why are we starting this U.S. framework political agenda called the role? Why is that the starting point? That will come from us. Okay. So again, no long consultation in the creation, no community involvement. It's people like Brickwood, Galutaria, Clay Dickey, the politicians who push this agenda, force it upon us. Next slide. So Act 195 creates a couple of important things. One is the purpose of this act is to recognize Native Hawaiians as the only indigenous Aboriginal population of Hawaii. That's important. So what we believe is that Act 195 already offers state recognition. So they couldn't get federal recognition. They're seeking state recognition, and one of the things that I've been told from insiders at that level is that the state was nothing more than to settle Hawaiian ceded land claims and claims arising from the Moku, etc. We know this because there's been many attempts by the state and OHA to sneak through these settlements. Yeah. The last one I think was in 2000. I want to say 83, and OHA tried to enter into a settlement with the state. We busted them. You was there. It was a big day, the Aloha Āina day, the first one Walter was organizing at the Capitol against the GMO on Colorado. And we saw all these OHA trustees on the second floor of the Capitol walking in, all our OHA trustees together. Something wrong. So we went down. And we walk into this room and they're having a meeting on a settlement. So they're watching. So they got up and they went down to the basement and they locked us up and have a meeting. Anyway, the point is, what I've been told is that whether we get federal recognition or not is kind of irrelevant. If they can form a Native Hawaiian governing entity, whatever that may be, that governing entity would have the ability to enter into some kind of settlement with the state of Hawaii based on this state recognition alone. Yeah? And so we need to pay attention to that. I've always felt that I've been told that federal recognition is a Hail Mary, touchdown, but if they don't get it, they're always looking at the possibility to settle the state, and it would be possibly a lot of money and some of that, etc. Act 195 also points out, next slide. Sorry. Act 195 also creates a Kalehua role country. Sorry, next one. Right up. And of course, you know these people, Bobby Danner, John, former Governor John White, and late Kihoy. So they're self-appointed. Anybody who vote for these guys will be Kalehua. Raise your hand. Anybody nominate these guys? So they're self-appointed, and then they're reaffirmed. Their appointment is reaffirmed by the governor. So we have these guys now who are managing their role. Their job is to create this database of certified Native Hawaiians. That's their job. Again, we have no part in selecting them, so they do not represent us. Next slide. The Kalehua role is launched. OHA gives them a lot of money. Here's an interesting thing. Kalehua, I heard the CEO of OHA say on many occasions in public forums like this, that Act 195 mandated that OHA fund Kalehua. They didn't have a choice. They told them we have to fund it. So the state legislature is telling OHA that manages foreign beneficiary trust monies, you have to fund these guys who are building a role. Does that sound like anything remotely close to self-determination or something that involves us? So first, it's very American. Right? So they give them millions of dollars. They like what, $5, $6 million. They kept going back to OHA for more and more. OHA kept giving them more and more. And tonight, but the reality is, nobody wants to sign up for Kalehua. I think the number of active people who sign up actively was about 20,000. So it's a total failure. Nobody wants to sign up. Again, we got to ask ourselves, if this thing was important, if it was a good thing for Aloha Āina, how come nobody wants to sign up? So what they end up doing is they resort to these kind of fear tactics. Yeah? So here's a notice that is published in Hawaii Office of Hawaiian Affairs newsletter. And you see this and we're kind of blown away. So it says here, notice, Native Hawaiians who choose not to be included on the official roll risk waiving their right and the right of the children and descendants to be legally, politically acknowledged as Native Hawaiians and to participate in the future convention to reorganize the Native Hawaiian nation. As a result, you may be excluded from being granted rights of inclusion, citizenship, rights of participation, voting, and benefits, etc. So Kalehua, nobody likes sign up. So they run this public notice to use fear and coercion to threaten us of by exclusion. We don't sign up. We out of the Ohana. We out of the nation. We out of the Hawaii. That sounds like Aloha to you. Is that how we sign up? Is that how we treat our people? So this is Kalehua. This is a role. This is their notice to all of us. Get on board or get left behind. Not only you, but your children, your descendants, your Okuna. Somebody's telling us that you will be forever out of the nation. So, what I'm trying to lead up to this presentation is all of these layers of health, of exclusion, of unilateral decision-making, of violation of inclusion and consultation. That kind of explains why nobody trusts Naki Aupuni, why nobody trusts OHA. This is real. It's not contrived. We're not making this up in our head because we're just a bunch of angry activists. We're delusional. We just want to fight in who wants to live their lives in political contention? I don't. If I had my way, I'd be surfing on a beach every day. So these things are real. These are real violations, intrusions, incursions on our rights as a people. Yeah? So next slide. So shortly after Kalehua, within the year, the following year, OHA announces their nation building plan. This one was a good one. Alongside, boom, OHA got a press release announcing the nation building plan. It was on a Friday. March 2014 was on a Friday. You see all these people at the Aloha press release. Walter, you there, remember? Walter showed up by accident, but he wasn't invited. But Walter, I remember, see, for me, I remember all these little important tidbits of information. Remember Walter was there, he wasn't invited, but he happened to be there. And then you see this kind of who's who in the Aloha press release. But it's all non-political people. It's like kumula, cultural people. Look at this plethora of people. And I'm thinking to myself, these are the people who are engaged in sovereignty and nation building, political activism, whatever. It's all like kind of non-political people. And then we realize that this press conference is all invited only. So all Aloha people decided, oh, we'll bring in all these community people that make it look like get credibility. But it's real easy to see that none of these people know anything about fighting sovereignty politics. Most of them don't. There was a few who did. So basically we find out that this Aloha Nation building plan was designed, planned, drafted by a 5-member committee called the Aloha Ad Hoc Governance Committee. So I started asking questions, who is the Aloha Ad Hoc Governance Committee? And I find out that it's some trustees and some staff. It's all Aloha people. None of us. No community council, no representation. If Aloha was smart, I would have a community seat on every committee that they have. But after years and years and years and years and years, Aloha get that feel, they don't learn. So they do these unilateral things in-house with their own people, then they wonder why there's no buy-in from the community. So, at the same time, Aloha has this press conference announcing the nation-building plan that they're going to use the Kanai role as a citizen base for this plan. And then they all announced, oh, we neutral. We're just here to facilitate. We're not here to influence the politics. We're not here to put our agenda. Okay. Because on Friday now, don't forget Friday. Okay, next slide. Here's their commitment, the Aloha statement of commitment on governance. And they basically want to reaffirm that we're going to serve the Native people and facilitate the process. So if you read the language carefully, you see it's all bullshit. They're facilitating a process, but if you read a little further, it says that check this out. The last sentence says, Aloha commits to working with this so-called governing entity to empower and assist in ways that are consistent with Aloha's statutory responsibilities and fiduciary obligations. If you look at today, it's interesting. This month's Aloha Kalehua, this month, so I will read Dan Ahuna's, Trustee Dan Ahuna's column, the last paragraph. He's exposing something important. He's saying that Aloha has an internal policy that they only will seek federal recognition. That's the Aloha internal policy. So Aloha is saying that they don't facilitate us in ways that are consistent. They're saying that they're going to facilitate in ways that are consistent with their policy. So this commitment statement of mere facilitation is bullshit. Okay, next slide. So Friday, Aloha get a press release. Okay, we want to facilitate governance. We're going to be hands-off with this one on Friday, Wednesday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. 5 days later, we find out, I get a phone call from one of my friends. Hey, you know all the Aloha people stay in D.C. They stay at the Department of the Interior right now. I'm like, really? So we find out that not even within less than a week, Office of Hawaiian Affairs say they won't be hands-off. You see, who's in this picture? You see Kavika Riley, he's one of their, he's the COO, Chief Operations Officer. You see Governor Waihe'e. You see Judge Kleinko as legal counsel in the back. We see Trustee John Waihe'e Jr., Colette Machado, and Norma Wong at the end. This is a good one. We can analyze this picture right here. Who's who? So we can see that we get Governor John Waihe'e. He's the anae role chair. So his job is to just build a list of the appointments. So his job is just to build a list. What is he doing in D.C. at the Department of Interior? So they're lobbying. They're lobbying a political agenda for federal recognition. You look on the far right, you said they have the far right Asian lady. That's Norma Wong, yeah? When Governor Wahid, when he was governor, Norma Wong was one of his chief of staff, one of his advisors. She's a political strategist. She's very smart. And when they had the Kalehua Commission, they hired Norma Wong as a consultant for $500,000. It's all in the records. So if their job is to just build a role, again, this is a list. You have to sign up people, verify that their ancestry. That was their job, to build a role. How come they're hiring a political strategist? And if you guys remember Kalehua, the cleanup, I worked on Kalehua for 7 years, during the whole cleanup over there. Planted 100,000 native trees. The $400 million that was given to Kalehua for the cleanup was brokered, was masterminded by Norma Wong. Yeah. So she has those political connections. So why is Norma Wong hired on to at $500,000 to advise Kalehua if they're just supposed to make a role? Yeah? Well, we know this because they're not just doing a role. They're in D.C. right here. They're at the DOI. They're lobbying. And what happens is these guys, Hanolo, they take a picture. They go to Macy Rono's office that Wednesday. They take a picture with Macy Rono, group photo, and one of her aides puts it on her Twitter. So they boss it. So everybody, right there, David Boston still himself. Yeah? So they're in D.C. less than a week after they come in to be neutral and just facilitate. And then I find out from a friend at DOI that, oh no, they're lobbying DOI for federal recognition. So the proposed rules that we see now for the potential for federal recognition that DOI may be offering, these are the meetings that led up to them. Aloha was bugging it. All these people, show us what you can give us. If we cannot get federal recognition through Congress, if we can't get federal recognition through executive order by Obama, can you get it directly from DOI? And so that's what we got, right? It's an offer. It's an offer on the table. Next one. So, because of the extremely dismal, poor turnout of people signing up for Kalehua, they only get 20,000 people. Nobody likes to sign up. They spend like $4 or $5 million. They got to fatten up this somehow. So they passed Act 77. Act 77 is basically a piece of legislation that comes down and basically enables Kalehua to grab names from other lists, put them in a roll without their consent, to make the list, to blow it up from 20,000 to over 100,000. And where do they get these names from? They get them from 3 primary databases. Of course, the main one is Kalehua. Everybody remember Kalehua? What do we remember about Kalehua? Free shirt. Movement. Free shirt movement. Instead of saying free the people, they will say free shirt. So Kalehua at one point Omaha was spending $100,000 a year printing up t-shirts. And they were just signing up people, come get your free t-shirt, sign me up. And they put this database. And then this database now sits in limbo for a bunch of years. And then at 77, they grab this database and they dump it into Kalehua, and they don't tell why. They also grab names from Aloha Hawaiian Registry. So the Aloha Hawaiian Registry is just an ancestry database normally associated with scholarships, with Hawaiian benefits, students, whatever. And they also grab names from this thing called Operation Ohana program. Some of you, Operation Ohana, some of you might remember that was a genealogy database. Yeah, Aloha was running. So they take all these names, I believe all these names, no consent. Probably half of you guys right here have been inside, and they dump it into Kalehua. One of the key problems, and I'm going to use the term self-determination, even on their terms, even within by their definition. It has to be based on consent. You cannot just do what name without their permission, right? So they built this database up to 115,000 names. And of course, the community is pissed off. And it should be. I find out, even within Omaha, there was a big internal battle. Some were saying, some people, the leadership in Omaha, were saying, we cannot do this. This is not formal. We cannot say people's names. But they did it anyways. And Act 77 made it legal by saying, oh, you can always opt out. The most principled approach should be opt in, not opt out. Okay, next slide. So of course, several years later, this famous name, Omaha creates. So now, there's so much political contention, so much distrust with these kinds of unilateral decisions, taking the names from different databases, blowing big money on federal recognition, going up to sneaking up to DC and getting busted. No more credibility. Nobody trusts Omaha. Nobody trusts Kalehua. That's a fact. So Omaha creates this idea to bring credibility, to bring Mama back to this process. So they create this thing called the consortium. You guys remember that, the consortium? The consortium was an idea that, okay, we go bring in the royal societies, Kalehua Society, Royal Order, Mama Kakawa, Aleha Āina, and there's another one, the descendants of warriors. Yes. So they're going to bring these royal societies in, and then they're going to bring some of the trusts, Lunar Trust, different trusts. They're going to facilitate the governing process. So this idea that, okay, we'll bring all these guys, they get money, we'll bring credibility and trust back. Well, guess what? Nobody wants to participate. Nobody wants to touch it. Royal Water says, we don't want to be a part of this. We're for independence. We're for restoration of the kingdom. Lunar Legal Trust officially positions, they don't want to touch it. Kalehua Society, I don't want to speak for them, but from what I've heard, their involvement in this consortium caused so much internal PDQ that their whole presidency and leadership was turned upside down with internal struggle, yeah? So nobody wants to touch this Na'ia governing process. So what happens is all the royal societies back off, we're not touching this, the trust say we're not touching this, and then out of the ashes emerge 5 people. 5 individuals, really. And they say, oh, we'll do it. Of course, we know some of them, Kuhio, Asam, Pauline, Namuo, and others. So basically, Omaha recognizes these 5 individuals as Na'ia Puni. Anybody in this room nominate these Na'ia Puni board members? Raise your hand right now. 5 board members, yeah? Na'ia Puni. Anybody nominate them? So now we have this group of people who designed the governance process. They designed the timeline. They designed how people can participate. Remember, there was supposed to be an election. When the election had a lawsuit, and the Supreme Court said, no, cannot have an election. And Na'ia Puni said, okay, fine, everybody can, all the applicants who were running for delegates can participate. That was a unilateral decision. They only had Ulas called shots, right? So, Omaha gives Na'ia Puni, up until this point, about $3 million, a little over $3 million. I'm starting to wonder now, at what point do us as a long way start looking at Omaha as mismanaging of our funds? Really, the one carrot, if you go from a copper bill, August 2000, till today, Omaha doesn't want nobody to know. I don't think they've ever done a comprehensive accounting of how much money they spent on governance, nation building, and federal recognition. But what I heard was like $40 million. At what point do us, as an operator, start holding Omaha accountable for mismanagement of beneficiary trust funds? Because they give Na'ia Puni $3 million with no accountability. There's no financial reporting. And they say it. We cannot do nothing. Na'ia Puni stands alone. They manage their money. They do what they like to do. We cannot do nothing. Who hands over $3 million? On top of that, and this kind of, I'll be honest, I kind of burned some bridges for this one. We were at a local trustee meeting, a board meeting, and I went before the board to testify, and I asked the board of trustees, who is Na'ia Puni? You're going to give them $3 million. Who are they? And all the trustees looked at me with a blank stare, they never said nothing. And then the CEO leaned forward and he said, it's Kalehua Sam, and he couldn't name the rest. So at that point, to me, the principal thing, and me, I didn't die by my principles. I need to die more often than I did. But I look at him and I go, okay, so you tell me you're going to give $3 million to this Na'ia Puni. You can't even name them. You don't even know who these people are. Who does that? Who's going to write a check for $3 million and give them to an organization and you can't even name the people? Does that sound like responsibility, fiduciary responsibility to you? So everybody laughs. I tell them, you should give the money to me, Skippy, Kalehua, and Kilano. You should know us by name. Everybody must laugh. So they keep me on, they don't talk to me, they piss off. But they can be pissed off, because I piss off. You hand it over $3 million. You don't even know who you hand it over to. So there's no accountability, and even with Kalehua, when they gave them upwards of $5 million, there was no accountability. Kalehua did not have to file reports to OA. They did not have to tell OA how they were spending the money. They could do whatever they wanted with the $5 million. But Kalehua Krug was up here talking about education. If you gave him $5 million, imagine what he could do for Hawaiian immersion, Hawaiian charter schools. So basically, all this over millions, and there's no accountability. Next slide. We're wrapping up right now. Sorry, we're a little over time. So when I talk about self-determination, I'm just going to talk about general principles, and even by their standards. I like to challenge them with their own standards, even if you follow standards of U.S. definitions. To me, they haven't been met. Self-determination is a core principle contained not only within the U.S. domestic law, but also in international law, that of course all nations and the people and peoples the right to freely determine their political status. It includes independence. Self-determination cannot be initiated, controlled, or monitored by the occupying state. So we know Act 195 is a violation of self-determination. It's a piece of state legislation. All peoples have the right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, you freely determine your own political status and pursue your own economic, social, cultural development. And then it goes into the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. Of course, the UN, this declaration is not law that has teeth that can be asserted, and people will always argue about it has no teeth. But to me, the principles are what we should be looking at. The principles are good. There's a moral principle that we should strive to achieve instead of going down into the dirt and not the dirt, but going down into unprincipled behavior, into unilateral decisions without consultation. How come we don't strive for the most principled process? Next slide, wrapping up. So, in summary, this presentation, what I hope to convey to you guys is a better understanding of why there's so much resistance to the Na'ia Puni, why there's not community buy-in. If there was community buy-in, you guys wouldn't be sitting here right now. Because this Aloha Āina is a result of the mounting resistance and protests against Na'ia Puni. So, in summary, we can say that principles of self-determination in a general sense, meaning us having a free state, involvement, and inclusion, has not been met. There's never been a mutual process. The state recognition is an effort to settle Hawaiian claims over national lands. That's the backstory in the closed door meetings. We've got to pay attention to that agenda. Federal recognition has the potential to threaten international claims to independence. Some of the Na'ia Puni guys will tell you One is not mutually exclusive over the other. Or you can still go for independence. Show me one Native tribe, one Native American tribe got independence. In the end, we believe that this process has been a corrupt process, and when you have a corrupt process, you'll have a corrupt outcome. Our kupuna tells this in our Olelo no Eao. When you work with dirty hands, you will eat kilau food. Yeah? Participation. So our belief was participation in the Nayakuni process is unprincipled because we cannot, for me and for the people that I work with, we cannot go into a process that has been corrupt all the way, and then at the end, okay, we're going to fix something. We're going to make it better. So we're going to ignore this long history of corruption, of unilateral decision making, of exclusion. We're going to ignore all that and think we're going to come at the tail end and somehow make it better. Next slide. That's it. In closing, I want to just point out one thing that we recently learned that we can use to juxtapose. The Maoris have a governance process that's going to be going on now. And I'm going to close it with this. The Maoris have a process called Mataiki Mai Aotearoa. And this process is being organized by someone that we have a relationship with, Moana Jackson. Those of you who remember Kikuni Gezel's tribunal, Moana Jackson is one of the tribunal judges, and a very well known scholar, Margaret Wood. They're organizing this process in Aotearoa. Since 2010, the Maoris have had 252 community meetings over a course of 5 years. After those 5 years of 252 meetings, they came out with a report. You know what the report says? The report says you got to go back into the community for 5 more years in education. Then they're planning a constitutional convention in 2021. And then they say by 2040, we might be ready to enter into a treaty with the Crown. So these guys, I think we should be looking at that. They got a timeline that's going on for like 25 years, 24 years from now. You know, they're not trying to do it in 1 month, you know, and they're having community consultation to tell them what to do, and the community says you still got to work for 5 more years to do education. If you guys, I'll close it by saying this Friday at Iolani Palace, we're having a celebration of life for some of our dear friends and leaders, Kekuni Bezel, Puhi Pao, Lian Javai. We're going to be celebrating their lives at Iolani Palace. This celebration is driven and organized by the movement, by Aloha and Honi Hau'ole'a, Maui political activist is flying in for this, and he's going to be giving us an update on this Maui process that we can use to inform us on their governance and kind of contrast it to this Maui process. So hold on for your time. We're sorry for the overtime. Aloha.
How's that information? Yeah? $4 million? Give me $5 million. We'll do something with that. You know, but for the hui, yes. So we all here. Yeah? Here we go. Here we go. Yes. So our next speaker will be Tita Helani Sanola Pali. She's been in the movement for a while, but she's just going to talk briefly on the DOI process, what's going on.